Hey folks, Alex Tack here from FQE. Thank you for joining me for Alex Unboxes, the Surface Pro Duo. So, tried to do this on live video. It was not working out. I don't know if Facebook is having problems or if I'm having my own bandwidth issue, so we're gonna kind of approach this a little different way. So, what am I here to talk to you about? Well, I'm here to discuss the Surface Duo and do a little bit of an unboxing and to discuss the pros and cons and my initial feelings and thoughts when it comes to this device. So what is a Surface Duo? Well, the Surface Duo is a new device released by Microsoft. It runs Android 10 on it, and it's a smartphone. So the idea behind it is you have a device, it's slim profile, looks very much like a book, and when you open it, you're going to have any dual displays that you can have content on either side. So it really very much changes how you might use your device. You can flip it around 360-degree hinges, so maybe you can do any video shooting this way or your selfie cameras, but the most natural way to hold it I found was just to have it a book like this. It has a fingerprint scanner for quick unlocking, and to give you an idea of what you might have, well, if you ever wanted to say having OneNote next to Google Earth, or maybe you want to have Edge next to an Excel spreadsheet, whatever the case may be. But again, kind of going back to the point that it's one of those features that you didn't think you needed till you started to use it. I never really appreciated how much of a difference having a dual screen device could actually do to your day-to-day activity. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that when I loop back and discuss some of the pros and cons and things like that come with the device. So what do I actually get when it with the Surface Duo? Well, you get the device itself. So that's one thing that you do get for sure. They give you this rubber bumper that's supposed to make you feel like you're gonna protect this device, and you get your charging cube, and then you get a cable to go with that charging cube. Now, one thing to note with the cable is that the line in for the charging block itself is going to also be a USB-C. So that's a little bit of a deviation from traditional devices that you're finding where it's going to have a USB port and where you can possibly use these cubes in different places. Now, for myself, running more or less a Microsoft shop and using a Surface, I'm not probably going to have too much of an issue with that, but for other folks that might look at a device like this that might not have that same ecosystem at home, you might want to kind of consider that when it comes to everything. So, what does this device have when it comes to hardware? Well, it's rocking a pair of 5.6 pixel Sense Fusion touchscreens. It's got an AMOLED display that does 1800 by 1350 native resolution. This one here is 128 gigabytes of internal storage, but I'm pretty sure you can get a 256 gigabyte model. I'm very much a cloud first person, so it's not something that's going to impact me too much, but if you're definitely a heavy user and you're not huge into cloud storage and things like that, then you might want to be looking at the larger model. It's going to have a 2.84 gigahertz Qualcomm Snapdragon 855 processor, and then 6 gigs of RAM. So that's a little bit of a problem for me. Me coming from a background of using a lot of OnePlus devices over time, I've been pampered with having a lot of resources when it comes to running a device. And you really do notice when you start bouncing back between different apps and trying to do multitasking on my OnePlus. It's very much this buttery smooth experience. And 6 gigs of RAM, although I would say is average for the industry right now, it's definitely not a huge amount. And with it being a dual screen device, I do think it probably would benefit from having more RAM. So I hope to see future duos taking that into consideration, and I think Microsoft would be in a good position to, if they really want to push these, they're going to want to make sure that they're going to perform just buttery smooth. And a good way to do that is to get more RAM into these devices. It's going to do your 4G LTE and Bluetooth and all the other fun stuff and trimmings that you would come to expect from a flagship device nowadays. Yeah, so that's basically the specs when it comes to the Duo itself. What did I like about it? What didn't I like about it? Well, the one thing I did like about it is it very much was a device that I didn't think I needed until I started using it. You can't really fully appreciate what being able to multitask in this way, what that could actually do for you. So that was probably the biggest thing. Having side-by-side apps, it really changed how you use your device and how you interact with things day to day. I could run a Teams meeting, and having the video on one side, and I could have my notes on the other side right there. I could stand up and I could be doing a speech, and I could have it open like this with having page notes on either side. You can have really the options are endless when you start thinking about having dual screens like this. what didn't I like about it? Well, you know what? I was scared to drop it. That's a big thing because it doesn't feel as solid as devices I've come to have in the past. And typically, I normally get an OtterBox or a more hefty protection for my device just to be on the safe side. And that's not really an option when it comes to a device like this. So that does worry me a little bit is the fragility piece when it comes to something built the way that it is. It has a high price point. That's a big one. I'm going to return back to that when I talk about a little bit of a niche market that I think that these could probably fall into. RAM, as I discussed, I think that that's also something that needs to be looked at down the road. And then the camera quality is really a little bit of a big one. So with me using a OnePlus 7 Pro, I want to say that thing has 24 megapixels on it, and this is going to have 11. So that's definitely a drastic drop when it comes to the quality of photos that you're having. But I would argue that somebody that's using this device isn't using it because they're out in nature, they're trying to capture this really beautiful image where having a lot of megapixels is going to make a difference to that overall quality, because it does do 4K video. So it does lend itself to being something you'd have open. Maybe you're doing any kind of a broadcast or anything like that, and you would be speaking into the book, and that's really where you're going to get that type of quality. And then 11 megapixels, that up close, with it being more of an emphasis on selfies and things like that, you're not really going to get as much of that net benefit having that 24 megapixel camera. So I see why they did it, but it is something that you have to think about depending if you take a lot of photos and things like that in your day-to-day life. So what does the future hold for a device like this? It very much is a niche market device, absolutely. And I think we're just starting to see the beginnings of dual screen devices. Samsung has one out in the market, LG has one, now Microsoft. So I do think this is going to be a little bit of a norm, but right now it is very much niched. And when you think about folks that would benefit from having like a device like this, instantly your mind kind of goes to say, lawyers, politicians, people that might be in positions where having something lightweight and having information surfaced in front of them is going to be really important, right? Maybe even doctors. But I think that a real market that these would fit well into is if Microsoft could find a way to price these better than the $2,000 price point they're at right now and try to get them into the education areas. I think that if you're a professor, a teacher, a device like this could make a huge difference in how you conduct your day-to-day activities in those roles. So that's one thing that I do think would behoove Microsoft to consider. When it comes to IT professionals, I think that it's more of a gimmick. It's not something that we're going to find as much of a direct impact on our day-to-day activities, because a lot of the stuff that we're doing requires us to be more power users. So we're going to be tied to a laptop of some kind anyway. So having a device that can kind of flip open like this, you're not really getting that same benefit that you would in a professional, that you could almost leave certain aspects of your laptop behind and really push the boundaries on how you might possibly use your phone for your day-to-day activities in your working life. So those are my initial thoughts when it comes to the Surface Duo. I think it's definitely worth checking out. I think it's definitely worth paying attention to where this line goes down the road. It's not without its glitches. It does have its issues. Like I said, its price point's a little high, but it's interesting. This is a disrupting market, and this is going to open up all new avenues on how people are going to possibly approach using their devices. And just I can't stress that enough. So anyway, thank you very much for your time, folks, and have yourself a great evening. Cheers.